where we're heading right now, what we know for sure, because the administrations are already signaling that this is what's important to them.
Oh, yeah.
So this is not conjecture. It's not theory. Like, these are actively things that the governments of the world are putting immense resources into. If anything, they are saving money in other programs so they can put more money here.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Where all the money is going towards are control systems of control. I think that's a great overarching kind of narrative here, is that they want to control our food. They want to control the skies. They want to control transportation, egress, ingress, egress, where you're going. They want to be able to control what you're thinking about, what you say, right? Everything is moving towards these mechanisms and systems of control, and it's slowly encroaching in on us. And I think in many ways we do not realize how fast these systems are taking over our brains and our lives.
So in 20 years, maybe a quick list of things that I think are for sure going to happen. One, self-driving cars, for sure, right?
Yeah.
You're not going to...
Pending good infrastructure, yes.
Yeah, people aren't going to drive any longer. Number two, robots.
Oh, for sure. For sure. Did you see that one robot in China that like went crazy and started attacking the people? Yeah.
Yeah.
Like these robots they're out in the wild now. These robots are there. We have them in rich people's homes, helping them out do laundry.
So robots. Number three, chips for people's brains.
Oh, for sure. We already have that.
Is that for sure?
For sure. For sure. We already have chips in people's brains. People are accepting chips in their hands and their arms. We've seen that. We have entire I can remember one commercial where an entire company in Australia, I believe, mandated that all of their employees, I think I'm making this up, like 300, 500 employees, were all required to get the chip in their hand so that they could get into the thing and they could pay for their food at the lunch thing. Like there was a whole, USA Today, silhouette on it.
I think it was like Sweden or Switzerland or
something like this. Yeah, but it was just like
Germany, maybe. I don't remember.
All of your employees accepted this? Why? For convenience sake? Apparently so.
I mean, the alternative is you walk around with this lanyard badge.
I'd rather have the lanyard badge and then have something under my skin that I can't take out. Because if your money is in this chip, they can just turn it off.
So some sort of social credit system that ties your behavior to your record, to your credit, to your financial credit, to your monetary system. Just a quick break before this video continues. If you haven't signed up for Soju yet, go check it out, soj.oo. It's a social discussion platform that we've created. That's where the community is hanging out. Definitely worth checking out, soj.oo. Also, if you're not subscribed to the channel yet, do it now.
Yes, social credit score, all of that moves to one word, access. Your social credit score is your access score. That's it.
So that we agree that that's going to happen.
It's already being rolled out, yes.
What else am I missing of those things?
Well,
food. We're going to get into, obviously everything is not genetically modified. We're going to start getting into bug-based foods.
Yeah, we're going to get into completely 100% manufactured foods, nothing organic, nothing natural anymore. And by the way, based on your social credit score and your carbon tax score, you might not be able to get that steak this Thursday because you've gone over your allotted amount of credits. And so there's going to be constraints put on you based on consumption habits. We're already being measured in our consumption habits already. We just don't realize it. And so all of that's going to come to bear. And one day they're going to say, you know what? The only way for you to eat, the only way for you to do trade and commerce and survive is you have to be part of this system. And the system will give you the allotted amount of credits that you can use today, Matt.
Traditional homeownership will not be a thing. Most people, not all, there will be people outside, and we'll talk about the alternatives for people. But majority of people will live in boxes.
Well, it's going to be a rent-based society. You're going to rent everything. You're going to rent your phone, your computer, your car, your house. You're going to rent everything because you're going to own nothing and be exceptionally happy.
You're going to live in a box. Most likely, if you live in a nice box, then you will have some sort of imagery that is displayed onto your walls to make you feel like you're somewhere different.
If you're in a high grade box, you get 6K.
Yeah.
If you're in low grade box, you get 720p. That's what it is, right? Your window outside is 7K, and the guys who pay the cheap price, there's only 720. So it's a little pixelated out there.
720 with just a TV type screen
Exactly.
versus
A full wall
wall
ceiling,
to wall.
Yeah, ceiling to floor screen. Yeah.
So I think that's going to happen also.
Oh, for sure.
For sure.
100. I say it with all confidence.
Yeah.
I mean, humans will all, and this is sad for me to say, Matt, but I always go back to the basis of human, the base of human base, which is you will choose convenience over everything else. Mostly privacy first, but privacy, you give up convenience for privacy, and then secondarily you give up privacy for convenience of access. That is what humanity is all about. We've seen that. We saw that with the mRNA mandates. We saw that with the mask mandates. We're seeing that in other aspects of life, is that people will comply so that they can survive. And you will comply if you want to survive.
Probably the most heavily militarized portions of any country will be to protect mega data centers.
Oh, for sure. Yes.
To make sure that they don't go offline, because that's the core of what drives everything.
Yes, major infrastructure sites. Yes.
And
so here, let me throw a question at you as we're going through this. There are cycles of history, right? We've read these, right? The cycles of history. You guys know these, right? Good men make good times, right? Da 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 da. Bad men make bad times. Da da da. If we consider those cycles, do you think, though, in the next 20 years, there will be an extreme movement to deep conservatism and deep traditionalism? Because sometimes, as the cycles of life go, some people respond to those extreme cycles of life and say, you know what, I'm going to pull back. I'm going to do nothing where the world is going. I'm going to do homesteading. I'm going to make my own farm. I'm going to build my own house. I'm going to go live out in Kentucky, right? Like so my question is, do you think with all of the fast-paced technocracy that's being deployed against us in these next 10 to 15, 20 years, do you think there will be a movement of deep conservatism where people are like, whoa, this is very mark of the beast-ish, and we're just going to, me and my homies, we're going to extract ourselves from this. Do you think that could be a logical option within all of that?
well, I think that similar communities do exist currently that have pushed back on the last 50 years of technology and innovation. So, like the Amish, the Amish live separated from society. They don't engage with the technology, but they're not growing. Meaning, if they're not growing, it means, and they're having a lot of kids, meaning they're losing a lot of people along the way. It's actually not easy to do, right? Because if they have the rate of kids that they have, then technically their community should be growing. If they're doing a good job of keeping their kids in.
Right.
But the fact that they're not growing shows that it's actually really difficult to do that.
Oh, for sure.
You know?
Oh, for sure.
I think there is a alternative solution that people will gravitate towards, but it's never going to be the majority.
So what do you, with everything that's getting thrown at us, Matt, I think people will probably care about your opinion and your ideas. So here's the question. What does one do to prepare themselves for this imminent technocracy that's going to be deployed against us?
You know, like I've been thinking about this a lot. You know, is this is an idea that, you know, like the dystopian future is coming, and depending on who you are, how you define what that dystopian future is different. Right? Some people actually like a lot of technology.
Yes.
I would argue that if technology stopped innovating 50 years ago, our lives would actually be really good still.
I would agree with that.
We didn't add that many value adds in the last 50 years.
Oof. We should probably pull on that string a little bit. Like if you think about,
If technology stopped innovating 50 years ago and said, we've hit the wall, this is all we got, take what's available to you as of 50 years ago, and let's make the best with what we had, actually society would be pretty good.
Man.
We had running water, you had electricity, you had the ability to communicate. You couldn't communicate 24/7 on the phone,
right.
But I could call my neighbor.
Yeah.
Actually, that's pretty good enough.
That's pretty good.
You were forced to stick within your community, within your neighborhood, and your life was just based on the people around you.
Yeah. And we had weekly barbecues with the entire community and the entire neighborhood. You knew all your friends because there were only 7 houses down on the right or 5 houses down on the left. You know, I don't mind saying the names right now. Like when I was living in New Jersey as a young boy, I remember I was in Slayback Drive, and just 7 houses down was the Landers boys. Just across the street to the far 2 houses over to the right was the Jeremy. 5 houses down to the left was Marcus. He was a knucklehead. Like I remember these kids because
Sorry, Marcus.
Like I remember these kids because after school, the first thing you would do is you hop on your bike, you'd ride over to Marcus or Jeremy or the Landers, where they had the Nintendo, so that was a big deal back then. And those moments, like I could tell you stories for days. I would go over to the Landers boys' house. They were twins, and his dad was this chunky guy. Loved, biggest smile ever. He looked like a Santa Claus. And whenever we would go over there, he'd bust out these old plastic, but these big ramen bowls. And he would throw 2 of those ramens in there for each of us. You know, those ramens were like 10 cents each back then. He'd throw 2 of these ramens in there, and he would cook up 4 of these bowls, these big bowls of ramen. And we would just be pounding these things, playing, you know, Super Mario Brothers on the Nintendo and Addams Family on the Nintendo. Like, it's all coming back to me now. Like, those moments are moments that unfortunately our kids and people who are having kids today will never have. Because why would you get on your bike after school and roll over to your friend's house? You're just going to text them and say what's going on. And then you're going to spend all your time on that phone talking about what happened at school. It's the world is less deeply connected today because of technology. And I think that's one of the biggest losses that we had. So when you say if technology stopped evolving or growing from 1985 essentially till today, then we would have deeper communal relationships. We have deeper relationships with people. We're probably far more understanding, you know, far more empathetic about cultures and these types of things. So while it's easy for us to look in the past and be all starry-eyed and say, oh, it was better, you know, 50 years ago, the reality is, I think, in many ways, life was definitely simpler and, if I can say, probably better. Probably better.
I mean, we had enough to survive as humanity.
Yeah, and things were good.
You
Things
know?
were good back then.
So
we didn't have planes falling out of the sky. We didn't have this thing called ISIS. We didn't have this thing called Hamas. None of this stuff existed back then, right? We didn't have 15-minute cities. We didn't have the Agenda 25, Agenda 30. We didn't have AIDS, or maybe AIDS was coming out at that time. That was a Fauci thing, right? Fauci did that.
We had Fauci, so
we did have Fauci, right? So I mean, things were better back then. I'm taking a stroll down memory lane here, Matt.
Yeah, if we had stopped innovating, like life would be pretty all right.
It would be fine. I think it'd actually be a bit better because we'd know our neighbors.
So what would happen if a community of people are like, dude, I'm just not going to get involved in this new generation of technology, and we're just going to pivot here. Thanks for watching the clip. If you want to see the full episode, click here. If you want to see more clips, click here.